Hello, everybody. I am Patty Dorito. I am the owner and founder of Holistic Healing Atlanta. At Holistic Healing Atlanta, we don't just treat symptoms, we look for the underlying causes where your body might not be functioning so well. So it may be physical, such as a genetic variant causing a breakdown. It could be diet, it could be exercise, it could be a lack of movement or sleep. It also could be an emotional piece, which we also look at, particularly trauma. And we also do just therapy. And I do a quantum neuro reset therapy also. And then it could be a spiritual. And based on what the client wants and the spiritual, we address those. But all I know is when I'm addressing the body, the mind, and the soul, I function better. So as a holistic practitioner, we use many different modalities. And I've come to appreciate that no pill or method can change stress unless the client wants to find ways to de-stress themselves. And we live in a world that we're constantly stressed and strained, even before the pandemic, but particularly now in this last 10 months. And our bodies move into the sympathetic side of the central nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze. This is needed at times. Driving in Atlanta, for instance, we need to have some of the adrenaline in the sympathetic part of our nervous system, but our bodies aren't made to stay in that mode constantly. And when our bodies are in the sympathetic side, a flood of hormones flash through the body, and it will cause an increase of heart. It'll inhibit the immune system. Sleep is compromised, and we don't digest our food well, and we become a little more irritable. To be healthy, we also need to be able to go into the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is the rest, digest, and heal. It'll help with improving the immune system, decrease your resting heart rate, improve your mood and your sleep. So there's many different ways to de-stress and to get ourselves into that parasympathetic side, such as prayer or meditation, mindfulness, nature, friendship, deep diaphragm breathing. But tonight I'm going to talk to artist Kathleen Gray Farthing, Sanity through creativity. So what is creativity? So creativity is the act of turning something new and imaginative ideas into reality. Creativity is characterized by the ability to perceive the world in new ways, or to find hidden patterns, or to make connections between seemingly unrelated phenomenon, or to generate solutions. So being an artist, so being creative, we could have art. It could be writing, it could be dance, it could be gardening, sewing, crafts. The list is endless. And before we begin, I just want to put it out there that you don't have to have formal training or even have talent to be creative or to paint. People like Kathleen are naturally gifted. So we need to throw all judgment of ourselves and comparison out the door. Kathleen earned a BFA in printmaking from Carnegie Mellon University. She worked for an ABC TV affiliate in Pittsburgh, doing graphic design, illustration, and courtroom drawings. Then, while raising her children, she ran her own graphic design business. A few years ago, a college friend told her about a process of painting landscapes on location called plein, and her passion for painting was reignited. Since then, Kathleen has painted all over the US as well as the world for fun and for competitions. During the pandemic, Kathleen has remained quarantined so that she can safely visit her infant grandsons. While having to remain isolated, she began tutorial studies with an artist by the name of Kelly Folsom to improve her own life still work. The studio work provided a needed focus through 2020, but she is very much looking forward to her next plein air adventure. Studies have shown that being creative and painting have shown to increase positive emotions, lessen depressive symptoms, reduction of stress, decrease anxiety, and even improve the immune system. Who doesn't want that? And believe me, You don't have to be a trained artist to be creative. So before we begin, if anybody has any questions or comments, you can put them into the comment box. I believe it's on the right side of your screen, and we'd love to be able to answer them. So let me introduce Kathleen Gray Farthing.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being with us. It's very exciting to have such a talented person in our midst. So, yeah. So, Kathleen, why plein air? What benefits do you find not only in painting, but being outside? And I just also want to say, from a clinical point of view, there's 8 reasons why being outside in nature is helpful and relaxing. So it increases your vitamin D, which helps your body function more efficiently. It helps with sleep, your circadian rhythms. It helps to unplug, very necessary. Nature helps to center your mind. It gives you some downtime to recharge, lowers your stress hormone levels. Fresh air improves your blood pressure, and oxygen affects your sense of well-being. But, Kathleen.
Well, those are all really good benefits of being outside. You asked about why I do plein air painting. First, I want to explain that a little bit more. Plein air painting is the process of being outside and painting what you see right there in front of you. The current plein air movement follows much of the same path as artists that you're probably familiar with, the Impressionist painters like Van Gogh, Monet, John Singer Sargent, and many others. So there's been a real resurgence in the United States, and I think part of it is just those benefits of being outside. You're taking in the fresh air. Yeah, there I am, taking in the fresh air, the sunshine when we have it in Northeast Ohio. We don't have it as often as I'd like. You're getting exercise, you're moving. Okay, so that's a fun one. That actually is my mother's old fur coat, but let me tell you, that is warm. And I was outside painting when it was 19 degrees, so it really it kept me warm. So yes, we even go outside. So you're out, you're active, you're enjoying that fresh air, and you're enjoying the beauty of nature or the interest of a city street. It's just right there in front of you. It's very different from being in your studio and painting from a photograph. For many reasons, but right now we're talking about the benefits of being outside. A man behind a big part of the current plein air movement is Eric Rhodes, and he's been calling plein air painting the new golf for a long time. And initially there were a lot of plein air painters that had already had a career, but as they retired, they wanted to take up another creative pursuit, and they found that doing plein air painting gave them a way to be outside, get some movement, get some exercise, enjoy the beauty around them, and sometimes paint with other artists. So you were out of your isolation and you were having that camaraderie of being with other artists, and the movement, just being around. You generally stand when you do the plein air painting. Not everybody does. I don't always, but that's another part of having the body engaged as well. When you're doing the plein air painting, this one right here that just popped up, that was from Parsboro, Nova Scotia. As you mentioned, Patty, one of my favorite things is to do these competitions around the country, or this was Canada. So I'm able to travel and see new areas. You go and you paint in the rain, and you paint in the cold, and you paint with the bugs, and that. Some of that part makes it more challenging, and some of that part makes it more pleasant. But when you are plein air painting, all of your senses are engaged. You're not just seeing something and trying to copy that down on paper. You're in that landscape, you're feeling the weather, you're hearing the birds, you're hearing the insects, you're feeling the wind on your face, the cold, the warmth, the sun. It's a multi-sensory experience.
So you're when you're painting, you're all that stuff is happening, but what goes on in your mind? Like, I mean, as you're in your zone.
Well, what goes on the mind, first there's kind of the problem solving. Well, first of all, what attracted you to that spot? So that's part of the creativity, seeing those colors and reacting to those colors, or finding interest in shapes and shadows and light and dark. So you're using the left side of your brain in the problem solving, and finding the creative side, finding that spot that talks to you, and then the problem solving and how am I going to compose this? How am I best going to relate what I'm seeing? So the mind is problem solving, but also just responding. So that's one thing I think that's really beneficial, and a really good part of this creative process is that it's not just that right side of the brain, it's also the left side of the brain. And that's especially important. You're talking about health and benefits of creativity and painting. You're engaging the brain, and all the research that they're doing on dementia and aging and Alzheimer's, they say that the more that you can keep challenging your mind, learning new things, engaging the brain, helps to keep it healthy. So that's another really good benefit, not just of the plein air painting, but of any of your creative processes. So go ahead.
Good. So when you're painting, do you also feel it in your body? Do you feel yourself relaxing? Or when you get home, do you say, "Whew, that was just great"?
When I'm in that process of painting, it's a hard thing to describe, and the only thing that I can really compare it to is what people talk about with meditation, or with that zone that runners get into. When I start painting, all those other distractions seem to fall away. I'm not worried anymore about what text messages are coming in, or what emails I have to take care of, or the laundry that I left behind. I'm just totally focused on responding to what's in front of me, that scene. I wouldn't say that it's relaxing the same way as laying on a lounge chair at the beach is relaxing, but it's relaxing. It's very meditative, where you get very focused and in that zone. I would say that I do believe that my breathing probably slows down, and my mind kind of, like I said, lets go of all that other busyness and just focuses on what I'm trying to do. And it's a really, when I get home, I'm so glad that I went out. I can't say that I always come home with a successful painting, but that's not the only purpose for being out. I've experienced that scene outside, and when I travel, part of that is being able to find those beautiful scenes, and I'm out there just taking it in. I had an artist residency in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, and I put something like 2,000 miles on the rental car in 10 days, because I went to all these amazing, iconic places on the peninsula. And as I'm there painting by the ocean or deep in the forest, I don't know, you just the whole environment, you just take it in. It just kind of becomes part of you, and you hope it becomes part of the painting. Like I said, it's not always successful, but I
think it's sort of that sense of awe and wonder, which I think is also affecting the soul. To be saying, "Oh my gosh, like, look what God created. This is amazing, and I'm here, part of it."
Absolutely. In some, some of the places I went, I mean, I can still be inspired by a New York City street, which isn't, doesn't have the same kind of beauty, but it has the same, for me, a puzzle, interest of color, light and dark and movement. But when I'm out in those amazing landscapes, you do feel that sense of wonder, and the painting is more than just a process. It's a whole experience.
Yeah. Do you typically capture what you want to in those, those beautiful places where you come home and see it, or?
You're asking an artist, and I think most artists would agree that we're very rarely totally satisfied. Before I start, I have the highest hopes for every painting. It's like, this is the most amazing scene, and I am going to capture this on my canvas. And I'm starting to paint, and I'm just so excited because this is it. This is going to be an award-winning painting, and everybody's going to love it, and I'm going to love it. And that occasionally happens, but you're competing with nature, and you're competing with your own expectations. So I don't know quite how to answer that. I know I remember hearing a story about one of our master artists. I can't remember who it was, that would, as a show was being hung, he would take his paint with him, and he would start making changes on his paintings right there in the gallery or the museum, because he would see something that would bother him that wasn't 100% what he wanted. And there's another painter that said, and I wish I could just pull out all these names right away, but someone else I'm watching probably knows it. Says painting is really easy until you know what you're doing, and then it's really hard. I think it's kind of like golf again, where I think that I don't play golf, but I think that I've heard that those golfers go out and this is going to be their perfect game, and it's never quite perfect, but it's still a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I think, again, leaving that critic, behind is really hard, for no matter what a person's doing, whether it's a work project or a creative project. We're our own worst critics. And so I think learning to put that aside and say, like, what is the purpose of why I'm going to do this creative thing? And I think that's a hard thing, because, like I said, we all are so hard on ourselves. And I see that a lot in my practice. People are so hard on themselves. And we're our own worst critic, as I think you've already said. And I definitely fall into that category, and always comparing myself to the artist who's better than me, and gets into more competitions and wins more awards. And I'm getting a little better with that, because I'm realizing, you have to remember that above all, you're doing it for yourself. When it's a creative, this isn't an illustration assignment that I have to please a client. I'm doing it for myself. And I think, when you're talking about creativity for your sanity, for your health, for your mental health, I think it's even more important that you're just doing it for the pleasure of doing it, for the stress reduction. And there are a lot of plein air painters, or, like you said, knitters, writers, dancers, whatever, that are only doing it for themselves. They never plan to have a show, and there's nothing wrong with that. People sometimes will ask me, well, you're doing 31 paintings this month, and you did that in October, and your paint seems like, where are all those paintings going? Well, a lot of them are getting stacked in my room and in the basement, but I've, each one I'm hopefully learned something else from, and I think I made valuable use of that time. So, you said something else that we talked earlier about And it's also important to get that out of our head. And that is like, maybe you were in 4th grade and the teacher said, oh my gosh, what is that? What do you think you're doing? Is that an art? Or, you know, an apple's supposed to be red and you painted it a bunch of different colors besides red. And I think that knocks us down a little bit, and that stays in our head.
Well, as I told you, I think everybody is creative in their own way. They may not think they are, but there are so many different ways of being creative that there is some way that you are creative. But and when you're talking about the visual arts, I think children are just born creative, and they're born to want to make those marks. And you give a crayon to a child, or a paintbrush with, you know, those big paint brushes, and you have those little easels back in kindergarten, and you could just splash that paint all over it. And they love it until somebody tells them that the sky's supposed to be blue, or you're supposed to make a tree that's a circle with a stick down it. And then all of a sudden they feel like, well, I can't do that, or mine's not as good as, you know, as Sam's over there, and they stop. And it's really a sad thing. I told you that when I was, the first time I ever had a music class, the teacher wanted me to sing the scales with her, and I didn't understand what she was doing, and apparently I did a really bad job of it, and she told me that I couldn't sing. So I carried that with me my entire life until I wanted so badly to join my daughter on stage in a musical, and I went and asked if I could be in it, and they said, "Well, can you sing?" I'm like, I don't know. And I went and worked with a music teacher, and she said, "You can sing on key." And you know, I know that, like you're talking about that God-given talent, I'm not going to be the leading lady, but I can sing in the chorus and have a great time. And really, the same thing happened with art. I'm kind of lucky in a way that I didn't give up on it. When I was in high school, before I had any formal art classes, a well-respected artist, a very accomplished commercial artist, looked at my artwork and said, "Well, you can play ball, but you'll never be a Brooks Robinson," is exactly what he said. And Brooks Robinson was a big star for the Orioles way back in the day. So basically he said, you know, I can do artwork if I want, but I'll never be great. And that's still in my head.
Right. And I think the takeaway is to be very careful what we say to other people, whether it's a child or another adult, because it hurts and it stays, it's traumatic to hear, like, oh my gosh, you know, somebody doesn't think I'm good at this. And then
some of the teachers that I admire, and I will like to be when I do plan to teach some classes sometime. I haven't done it yet, but I do. I mean, I have in the past, but I haven't taught plein air painting. But I really want so the teachers that I admire are able to look at where a person is and point out to them what their strengths are, and show them some things they can do to enhance what they already have. Mm-hmm. And I've met people on the plein air circuit who have never had formal art lessons, art training, and are either self-taught or just took a couple of classes and got out there and painted and are doing a fantastic job, doing very, very well.
Okay, so let me go back to, so in this past year of 2020, how has painting helped you? It's been a rough year.
Yeah, well, in 2019, I participated in 10 different plein air events that ranged from 2 days to 10 days, plus the 2 weeks of an artist residency. So I was traveling, staying with host families, seeing different parts of the country, and just absolutely loving it. January, I took a trip to Cuba with 11 other artists and came home, and we just started hearing about this COVID thing, and it didn't really sink in until all of a sudden it was like COVID's in the US and COVID is here, and then everything shut down. I had already applied to all these events for 2020, and one by one they were being canceled or changed or postponed. And we decided that we were not, there are, towards the end of summer and fall, there were some events that went on with social distancing, and they altered the event so that people weren't together in a room close together. But that was still more exposure than we wanted when we were visiting newborn babies. So I lost every one of those events, and I just didn't know how I was going to get through it, because that was just my my focus and my love. But as soon as it became apparent that we weren't going anywhere, just everything sprung up online. All these different organizations were offering tutorials, free tutorials, paid tutorials, lessons, Zoom classes. And I'm signing up for every single one of them, because like, I'm home, I might as well do it. And Patty, I know you can probably talk about how you can't do that. You can't have your brain going into 16 different directions. So for the first month or 6 weeks, I was doing as much as I could take in. And then I ended up focusing on still life painting. I think we have, well, I don't know, we didn't show any of the paintings from when I was doing my plein air painting, I don't think. We can just pop through this quickly. Well, that was Nova Scotia, and that was Cuba. And this was all from 2019. That was painted on location. We took all of our supplies with us.
And you had those people stay still?
What?
All those people, they stayed perfectly still.
Oh no, I paint them one at a time. No, they're moving. They don't still. It's as bad as trying to paint cows. They never stay still for you. And then this actually was from 2020, but I painted by myself. One of the early slides showed where I was painting this scene. You can see, I was all by myself and nobody around, so I was able to stay completely isolated. And then this is a farm. The only places I went outside of the house were just nearby. This is less than a mile away. And I just want to make a comment about this one. It's called All Is Well. And this is in the middle of our pandemic. But as I was painting the sunset, the farm looked so peaceful. And all I could think of was, we will feel peaceful again. And you, Patty, you talked about taking in that beauty, taking in the sensory of the majesty and, the bigger picture. That was definitely for me kind of a bigger picture. So anyway, but for the most part, I started focusing on still life painting. This is one of them. I was doing tutorials with a wonderful teacher named Kelly Folsom. And that Kelly is one of those teachers that works with everyone from very beginners all the way through very accomplished artists. And she's encouraging to everyone. She does weekly lessons, tutorials. I don't know whether her registration is open right now. She only opens it a few times a year, but she also has all kinds of things available. So if you're interested in doing still life paintings or even plein air painting, she has some other courses that you can check out and see what she has. So I started doing a lot of still life painting, and I hadn't done much in the past. So it was a way to focus again, a way to challenge my brain. It's a little different experience. I do recommend working from life when you can. These are still lifes that I set up in my studio. And for people that just want to paint for themselves or dabble, I really do recommend even the simplest thing like putting an apple in front of you and getting out your pencil and a pad of paper and just playing around, just doodling, dabbling.
And leaving
It's
the
good for
judgment
you.
aside when it doesn't look like that, does not look like what's on that paper. To leave the judgments aside.
Oh, you don't see the ones that I scraped off.
Oh. So Kathleen, I know your mom died in late December. So tell our audience how you're using painting to process your grief.
Well, yeah, that we ended up the year that crazy year with my mom's passing, which was difficult, especially not being able to get together to honor her. My mom did do some painting, but she was her first love probably was creatively was flower design, gardening, flower arranging, and as I was already doing still life, I decided that I would do some still life painting in her honor. And I'm doing just a self challenge this month of January where I'm doing a painting a day for 31 days in January, a painting a day. And I decided to make them all floral paintings in her honor. So I'm learning more about painting flowers. They're more challenging than you would think.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. Are you thinking about, oh, by the way, so Kathy's mother is my mother.
But you think they can tell, like, we don't look alike at all, do we?
You have straight hair, I have curly hair. Yeah, so is that helping to process, thinking about mom and
It really is, and it's it's like I said, we weren't able to get together yet to honor her, and I feel like every time I do one, I think about her and honor her. Initially, when we first got the news, right off the bat, I started going through old photos to help put together a tribute, and I found that to be healing in itself. It was a little bit of a creative process in selecting the photos and editing them and putting them together for the presentation. That was a big help, but I needed to do something more, and it is a help. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have another question. So what if I think that I'm not creative? I have no creativity in me. I hear that from people. And so how do I get creative? But, one of the things from a psychological point of view, and then from an artist, I want to hear what you have to say. So thanks to smartphones, screens, and technology, our brains are constantly occupied, and the technology keeps our mind busy. And so, but that is actually hurting our creativity. The brain needs to be bored to be creative. It needs downtime to process creative ideas. I know even like in the business world, people can be trying to figure out how to solve a problem, but when they walk away, maybe go outside for a walk and come back, the answer's there. But so that's from more of a psychological point of view, that the screens are just kind of destroying the creativity. But I was wondering from an artist's point of view, how you see that.
Well, I want to just touch on the whole like technology thing real quick, just kind of an aside from my art. My daughter was a nanny for several years for a family, and they had very strict rules about how often their kids could be on any kind of screen time. And I was always so impressed and amazed at what those kids were doing. They were playing make-believe, dress up. They were writing plays. They were doing puzzles. They were going to the museum. Very creative, because they didn't have that option of filling every minute with their phone, which I tend to do too myself, and that's one reason for these challenges. So where I'm painting every day, because otherwise there'd be days when I'd say, don't really feel like it, I'll do some laundry, and then I sit down and I get on my phone or my computer. So I would say the very most important thing is to set some time aside. If you want to improve your art, or if you want to learn a new area of art, and like you said, I said, it doesn't have to be painting. People are creative in journaling. People are creative in doodling. People are creative in knitting or pottery, or you name it, garden design. So setting aside that time is a big factor. I fall into that trap all the time if I don't have, if I haven't committed to painting. So commit to, I mean, it might only be once a week, but commit a certain amount of time. There are all kinds of exercises, like you say, in business. They started this whole problem-solving exercises. You can you do the same thing with creative exercises. Putting down multiple ideas, or putting down multiple little sketches, and then building on one of those ideas. I don't know what all of those exercises are. They'd be easy to look up. There's probably a lot of books that you can look up. I know there's a book that I had back in college called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And it was for anybody. It wasn't just for artists. And it was a series of exercises to basically learn how to draw through these creative exercises. I think for the drawing or painting, just working from life can really help you get creative as well. Taking classes, whenever when I decided I wanted to start doing the plein air painting, I went to there's workshops everywhere. I believe we're going to post some resources, and this is strictly for different types of artwork, watercolors, drawing, pastels, acrylics, art instruction at Streamline Art Video. You buy those though, for 300 days. Eric Rhodes has been posting hour-long segments from these tutorial videos that anybody can look at for free. Some of them are more than an hour long, and you can see the process. But they have all kinds of art tutorials on there. Kelly Folsom is one that I mentioned. If you want to know more about plein air painting, this outdoorpainter.com has links to all kinds of different resources. There's blogs, there's a magazine, there's workshops listed. So for me, I took a lot of workshops and classes to kind of understand more what it was all about. And that really helped me. So if there's something that you've always wanted to do, find a class. It can be at the Y, it can be a community college, it can be an online. There's so much free on YouTube. So the main thing is finding what would interest you.
I think that's really important. Like along lines of exercise, not everybody wants to go run. So it's like, well, what do you enjoy? Because if you don't enjoy it, just as an aside, I have a friend that instead of scrolling on her phone at night, she started knitting. So everybody got socks and hats, and scarves, because I just thought that was a good use of time. So Kathleen, do you have any last words for using creativity for self-care before we end?
Oh gosh. Really, I mean, you can get so much out of it. You get so much out of it. It's so healthy to have that outlet, to have that joy. You'll meet new people. You'll find a whole community. So that's the good thing about our technology, is there's community of creative people out there. There's all kinds of meetup groups. I was doing photography. I do photography. I found a group through Meetup. So anyway, yeah, just do it. Just do it. You'll love it.
I think what you said is setting the time aside, as well as pushing yourself when you don't feel like it. I am
commitment.
Didn't feel like going out in 19-degree weather or painting in the rain, but until it becomes habitual, and then like the reward after. So I think those are good points, and it's not selfish to take time for yourself.
And find other people to do it with. There's art organizations everywhere for every type of art. Like I said, I found this great photography group through Meetup. You'll find an art group, a creative thinking group through another resource. And when you have a meeting date or you have a workshop, then you're going to be there and you're going to do it, and that leads to the next thing.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you, Kathleen, for coming on the show, taking the time. And if you want to see more of her artwork, you can go, I guess, to your website.
The website, right now I'm posting my daily paintings on Instagram, that KG Farth, and on Facebook, Kathleen Gray Farthing on Facebook. I do have artwork on my my website, of course, and you can contact me through the website. It's going to be updated as soon as I get more of these paintings from the month done. I still have my holiday sale up, so if you find something under the holiday sale, you can still have a sale painting. Yeah, and put artwork in your home. If you're not going to do it yourself, support the artists. Right. We can use it.
So anyway, just thank you again, and good night, everybody.
Thanks, Patty.
Thanks.